Thank you. Good, so everybody, my name is Diana Guzman Alonso. I am Mexican and I am going to talk about having a variety of food for long space missions. Why is it important? Why not just food engineering, flavorless, or maybe just rationalized food? Why is it important to have a variety of flavors, a variety of textures, and a variety of fun with food? I want to start with a phrase that my mom always used to say. She always said, "Don't play with your food," but food, playing with food is a little bit part of the culture. Even astronauts in space play with their food to make even their lives a little bit more interesting. We're going to talk about that in a bit. But first, I want to talk about why having a variety of food is important for the health. So we all know this plate, the Australian Guide to Healthy Eating. So Australian dietary guidelines provide up-to-date advice about the types and recommended number of serves of different types of food that we need to eat for a good nutrition and a good health. And they divide it in 5 food groups. So what is healthy eating? Healthy eating means eating a wide variety of foods from each of the top 5 food groups that they show here. So they are vegetables, legumes, and beans in the same group. We have fruits in the other group. We have lean meats, poultry, fish, eggs, tofu, seeds, nuts, legumes or beans as well in here. And we have grain, cereal foods, mostly whole grain or high fiber cereal varieties. And we have in the other one milk, yogurt, cheese, mostly reduced fat, preferably. So foods are grouped together because they provide a similar amount of key nutrients. For example, the key nutrients in the milk, the yogurt, the dairy include calcium, protein, while the fruit contains the vitamins, for example. So eating a variety of foods from the 5 major food groups provides that range of nutrients for the body. It promotes good health, and it can help reduce the risk of disease, as well as keeping the diet interesting. And this is what I want to focus on, keeping the diet interesting. We all know I'm not a nutritionist, but we all have heard of the value of food variety in our diets while in nutrition focused. So as a bonus, well, here, let's talk first about how do astronauts eat right now, today, or maybe for their Thanksgiving or for their Christmas. How are they going to eat? It's normally something called just add water and heat meals. So it's mostly freeze-dried. Careful, it's not the same as dehydrated meals. Dehydrated, mostly you take away all the water and it loses a little bit of its nutrients, while freeze-dried meat, vegetables, fruits, you just take out the 98% of the water. That is important because in space, water has weight. So in space, you need to be as low weight as you possibly can. So freeze-dried meals, so you take 98% of the water, and then you can store it as a shelf-sustained ingredient, which means that it's going to last a very long time, because this process helps reduce microbial growth, so it can last a very long period of time. And if you want to cook it, you just hydrate it back and start preparing the meal however you want. While with dehydrated foods, you cannot bring it back to the way it was before. And freeze-dried meals also it maintains the original shape that they had. So there is this plan that I first saw with in a Dr. Sian Proctor's talk. So she talks about the Martian diet. So she says that in the future of Mars, so people are going to start growing their own plants, right? Also, always indoors, because Mars is not a very fertile environment. It's very, very hard for anything living in it. Also, insect products may be the future for all of us, so we better start getting used to that. And the cellular agriculture is maybe 3D printing our foods, maybe doing something different with them so they can last longer. And yeah, and here are the add water and heat products that we saw earlier. So, can we grow our own food in Mars? I was in Habitat Marte mission 129, and only 1 week, so it is very difficult for only 1 week mission to be able to grow something. So I just planted the foods, and I just crossed my fingers to say, oh, please, I hope that people take care of my little baby plants, and that maybe in the future they can grow something. Right now in Habitat Marte, there are some chilies, some onions, some little tomatoes, and some kind of herbs like to add flavor. But there is not a lot of variety, so that is something that I was very focused on, like having variety, mostly more vegetables, and the easiest ones, the ones that you can cook the easiest way, or the ones that you can have more variety with when you want to cook, are potatoes, are carrots. We tried some avocado, but that is going to take longer, and some other foods like celery, and some other types of chili. And yeah, so we wanted to vary it a little bit. But how long is it going to take for us to grow our own food in Mars? So for example, if you want to grow a potato in your backyard, maybe it's going to take you 4 months until you can take the potatoes back and replant them again. So it's going to take a very long time, mostly if you are like trying like trial and error type of planting and cropping. So astronauts need, I'm not saying it's not possible, because there are some, well, first of all, this is a movie that inspired me, and the book as well. So this is an Marstronaut that was stuck in Mars and said, oh, I'm going to need to grow my own food if I want to survive. So he started planting potatoes on Martian soil, but maybe in the future it's not going to be on Martian soil. Maybe we're all going to take our own type of engineered soil, where we're going to plant indoors with a special kind of soil and a special kind of care. But while we get there, while we get to growing our own plants, we are going to need to have brought our own freeze and dried food. And that is what we have to think about. But later, when we already have like our own food, and our freeze and dried foods that we brought to Mars are like done with, maybe we can start thinking about what we can cook with it. So in Habitat Marte, there were some food experiments that we wanted to try. Dr. Julio told us that he had tried to cook cactus before, because in Habitat Marte there are lots and lots of cactus plants, but he said they didn't taste very good. I don't really want to try them again. But as good Mexicans, we said, but you have also nopal. And it's very interesting seeing like what do other cultures try to eat. I was very surprised in Brazil that they put honey on the cheese, and now it's a very delicious plate that I add to my weekly diet. But in Mexico, we eat nopal, so we know how to cook it to make it a little bit more edible, more delicious. I don't particularly like it, but it can be eaten. So the expert was my teammate Karen, so she took the nopal, she found a good one, and we started cooking it, and it was edible for me, but the other two said that it was very delicious. So maybe it can be something that grows in a very harsh environment, and we can maybe add it to the future space diet, because it starts very, very dry. And if you add water and start cooking it, it can turn into something very nice. And there are a lot of variety. I don't know in other countries that much, but in Mexico, there is a very, very big variety of culinary art. So I do believe that Mexicans need to be maybe in charge of proposing lots of different kinds of meals to make it varied. So make it for interesting. So it's not only about the health and the functionality of food. There are some businesses trying to make functional food, and some people like me are horrorized because you say, but you're taking all the fun out of eating. And so it's because of our culture. Our food culture is very much like the pleasure of eating. So it is important to cook creatively with the same ingredients that we have. We can find lots of different ways of applying them to our meal. And the interesting part about food is not only the fact that it sustains our life, is the creative things we can do with what we're cooking. I was recently part of a space camp for 1 week, and it was always the same food every single day. Defrosted egg, defrosted chicken milanesa, defrosted waffles, cheese hamburger, fruit in almíbar. So it was always the same texture, the same flavor, the same sugar. And for 1 week that I was there, and the other members of the camp were like, yes, it's always the same here. There is no variety. Every day is the same. So they got food sick at the time of lunch. We were like, oh, it's always the same. But imagine the people that were working there, they were, yes. So sometimes I don't really eat because I can't handle eating the same every day. So it's a very important psychological part, the variety of food. So, for example, in Habitat Marte, as I was saying, there are not lots of fresh foods. Right now, there are tomatoes, some chili, and some onions, right? So we said, okay, so what can we cook with all of this? So there is pasta, there was frozen meat, there were some kinds of plants that smelled funny. So we said, oh, let's try something interesting with it. So we cooked spaghetti with this kind of sauce. With the tomatoes were part of the sauce, and they were also on top of it. They could have been raw. They could have been cooked. The little chilies were very particularly interesting to me because they were not spicy and they tasted very, very good. So that is one of the things I was talking about, the pleasure of eating, making it very fun, interesting. And while you are eating, you can talk with people to make the meal more memorable. And as I was talking to you at the beginning, my mother always told me, don't play with your food, but I see the astronauts eating, and they always look that they are having lots of fun with their food while they're eating. They just throw it in the air and try to catch it. And I think that is a little moment of their day that is made very, very interesting, fun, so they don't go crazy eating always the same. They can eat fresh fruits, tortillas down there, cookies, nuts, and they can always find a fun way. They can start doing circus malabars with their fruits, for example, or they can just say to the nothing, take my tortilla a little bit, and they start putting something in it. And I want to talk about tortillas as well. Tortillas are very important for space food because you cannot eat bread in space. So to make it interesting, maybe to take your own food with your hand, you can put them in your tortilla, and it just makes a lot of variety in foods. There are lots and lots and lots and lots of ways of applying a tortilla as an ingredient in a meal. You can have it broken into pieces and made soup. You could only use it like, instead of a fork, you could use it as to not take the food directly with your hand, but just like a burrito. And maybe you can use it for quesadillas and cook them, or maybe you could just eat them with a little bit of salt, and there you go, that's your snack. So I took this specific pack of tortillas to Habitat Marte, and I was always, whenever we cooked something with it, we had to rationalize it a lot because there was only one pack, and apparently they were very popular. So the next time anyone goes to Habitat Marte, you have to bring at least 2 packs of tortillas. And I was always asking, because as part of my research, I was like, how do you like it? Do you like it? Is it interesting? So I was always very happy when Julio said, yes, very good, very delicious. And I was always like looking the way my teammates enjoyed their meals, because it's very important to enjoy the meal, not only just eat it because you have to. So these are 2 of the things we built. We cooked. We made quesadillas. So it's only just you put cheese inside of your tortilla, and with a little bit of sauce with the tomatoes and the onions and the chili, you put it on top of that. We made a different kind of sauce for the enchiladas. That we use tortillas, we put inside meat, and the sauce is very similar to the ones for the quesadillas, but it's a little bit different, and you add cheese on top, and there's a completely different plate with the exact same ingredients. So in conclusion, as we think about future habitats on the moon and Mars, we need to think about the food supply line, of course, that will be needed to keep the astronauts healthy. And we have to think that at the beginning, they are not going to be growing their own crops. That is going to take at least a year. So they need to have the food that they are going to need to survive. But we also have to keep them happy with what they are eating, to add like a menu, a variety of things of every single country. I propose Mexico, but I'm sure there are other countries that have a very, very big variety of food that they can try to cook. And yes, that is everything for me. The variety of food needs to be very important for health and for fun, and to stay healthy and not want to die because you eat always the same thing. Thank you.